Happy Friday, everybody. Oh my gosh. I felt like we were just saying it was Friday.
Kevin Miller in the house.
Kevin
Eric
Miller
in the house.
smoking me in some chess games, I believe.
All right. We're buffering here. There we go.
Man, I forgot to do my chess moves this morning. I might lose some games. You know, playing these chess simul's that we're doing in the DC, it's like, you know what they invite like Gary Kasparov or Magnus Carlsen, and they put a bunch of really high quality players. It's like some of the best players in the local area or even sometimes in the world, and they put them in a big like horseshoe, and then the grandmaster goes around and just makes them
Plays everybody.
and he dusts everybody always. That's kind of the party trick. They even sometimes do it where the grandmaster's blindfolded and plays like 10 masters, and he beats
Get
them all.
out of here.
It does it. But the interesting thing when you play these big chess matches online like we're doing in the Dynamite Circle is that you feel like the guy going around doing all the moves because you're playing 15 different people. And so it really exercises, typically when you're playing chess, you're like looking at all the different moves you can make and all this kind of stuff. But when you're playing these simul's, you just kind of like have to look for patterns, and you have to trust your instinct that like, oh, well, I'm not going to blunder a piece here just yet. I'm not in any danger, because you got to get through 15 moves every day. It's a time consuming thing. So this is my big, long excuse for why I'm losing so badly.
Exciting.
How's everybody doing? The concept of today's show is we want to talk about things that we're thankful for. It's a Friday happy hour. I've got my Yeti 20-ounce tumbler filled to the brim with hot Folgers. Now
that's your second Yeti, by the way. Your first one disappeared a couple weeks ago.
I could have chosen Pete's, which was a higher brow coffee brand. But one of the things that I'm thankful for is a return to Americana style eating. And Americana style eating is simply this. You open up the fridge, you pull out the bottom drawer, which nowadays is the freezer, used to be on the top. Remember those days? Now it's on the bottom. You pull it out, and you pull out 3 different colors of food, and then you cook that shit up. That is how Americans eat. And then you put ketchup on the table. And I enjoy this because, just a few months ago, we were all pressured into putting 8 different ingredients into everything. We had to use creme fraiche on things, and it was just a pain in the ass. And I like 3 different colors, put it on the plate, eat it, and you're just the same as you ever were. It's good stuff.
When's the last time you cooked a meal, Mr. Dan?
I made you a banana and I made you a sandwich just the other day, man.
This man has only made one sandwich in the last 7 years, so I don't know how much latitude you got to be talking about making food. You will eat some food, though.
All right, here's a question to all you guys. What are you happy about due to this quarantine, due to this virus? I'm going to ask you to say something crazy, because this is a happy hour theme. Later on in today, we're gonna take a call in from one of our favorite all-time guests, Taylor Pearson, to talk about a concept of the title of this live stream: the more things make sense, the less they do, and essentially about how information affects uncertainty and how we might adopt our behavior as entrepreneurs to take advantage of it. And Taylor's on the front lines of this stuff, and we have a bunch of thoughts. We're going to reflect on that discussion with him, and that'll happen in just 5 or 6 minutes here. But until then, what I wanted to do is ask the boss man and ask you, the audience, what is actually good about this? Whether it's like personal, whether it's, eating ice cream every day and not feeling bad about it. Whatever it is that you've been finding joy in, I want to know about it, because it's cool to like this. We got some time to explore some new things, some new habits, some new YouTube deep dives, some new exercises, whatever that might be. Tell us what you're doing. Boss man, let's start off with you. What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful it's Friday, even though it doesn't matter. It all just feels the same now. Like I haven't left the property here with you in like days, and it all just feels the same for me. But me personally, I feel like we're really getting ahead on a lot of things. We're getting ahead on a lot of things in the business. And I'm getting ahead on a lot of my personal projects too. And part of the reason for that is we're locked down, but also there's like no FOMO. Meaning like a lot of times I'll sit at my house.
You're a FOMO sufferer?
No, not really, but sometimes. I mean, a lot of times I'll sit at my house and I'll think like, oh man, like, I should really be doing this, or, I should be pursuing that or whatever. Everybody's out there doing all this stuff. I'm just sitting here, doing my thing. But you know what? Now everybody's sitting there just doing their thing. So I'm not missing out on anything by indulging myself in some of these projects. And I'm certainly getting through a lot of projects here around the shop. As you can see, I put up a new air system from a new compressor, which I'm pretty excited about. It took me like 3 days to sketch out, and I'm almost done putting that up. Just getting ahead.
What is that? An air system for a compressor?
So it's basically I've put air in my shop, meaning like I have capability to run air tools, and I've always had like a compressor, but I haven't had this much of a sophisticated system, meaning like there's a bunch of ports on different walls, and I don't have a bunch of lines running across the floor. So I've like really taken this opportunity to tidy up the system and build one that I think is going to last forever. And just work on some of these other cars in here. It's been nice to be able to focus. I mean, it's oddly quiet, on the streets, on the internet. I mean, everybody's like really preoccupied with the news, myself included. But I think this weekend I'm gonna especially just tune out for a while and just continue to try and work on my projects and not pay so much attention to all the noise.
Yeah, I
because
mean,
you can really get stuck in it.
It's really an open and interesting question how useful the news is, right? We
Yeah.
talk a lot in our community about usefulness and the virtue of usefulness, and that's a little bit what we want to talk about with Taylor Pearson today, who writes a wonderful newsletter called The Interesting Times. If you're not subscribed to it, hit Control T right now if you're on a classic browser and go over to Taylor Pearson's website and subscribe to The Interesting Times. It's worth your time. That's for sure. So one of the things that I'm thankful for right now is this idea of enforced simplicity. And one of the things that appeals to me about the idea of digital nomading, of traveling light, of things like van life is that everything is a trade-off, and that sometimes when we make decisions in life, we don't see those trades for a very long time. And so when you have a great deal of things or a great deal of enterprises or focuses or responsibilities, sometimes those trade-offs get lost and then they come back and they cause problems for you down the road. I want to talk about just one day I had last year. I hate doing administrative work. And the reason is because I've sold myself on this Kool-Aid of I ought to be building something every day. I ought to be producing value. And so given the choice, and there always is a choice in our lives, I will try to do something like get on the phone with a team member, give you a buzz, always try to get something moving.
This is why I do all the admin work in the company.
Yes.
Very clever. Now it's all starting to make sense.
Our internal joke is I'm not a part of that process. Willful ignorance is a quality skill to develop as an entrepreneur. What I did, I took one day last year because, you hear about all these cool strategies online and things you should do financially. So I opened up a bank account with this company because they provided a credit card that gives you these kind of points. And one of the things that this great piece of advice that a lawyer named Phil Hodgen, who I've worked with, who's amazing, from Hodgen Law, he also has a wonderful newsletter. He said, and I wasn't wise enough to understand it at the time, is he said, you young people, you entrepreneurs. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, you totally underestimate the cost of administration. And I was like, yeah, probably.
And undervalue it, I would say.
Yeah.
Me being the guy that...
Yeah. And I kind of like heard that advice and proceeded about doing whatever I was doing. And it really hit home with Ian and I, like in the last few years, we were trying to simplify our ventures. And I took one day last summer to sit down. I spent 8 glucose hours, which is like I was locked in for 8 hours. And for some reason, I was motivated and jacked, and I just leveraged that energy. And I like called all my bankers. I shut down all my cards. I paid off people who I was dragging along. And it was just all this complexity in my life that was costing me time. And that 8 hours set me up for a whole year of like positive financial steps forward. And I was just mentioning to Ian that I have another day on my schedule that I need to do that. But I think that that's a really positive thing you can do during this lockdown is ask yourself, like, what's the financial setup in terms of like cards, banks, how my investments are allocated, who my accountant is, what my relationship is with them, all those things. you can do that in one like full day.
Yep.
Simplify it. So we, you know, in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think Covey calls this sharpening the sword, or sharpening your tool. It's like, this is your foundation that then you can go out and have a high performance year when things open up just a little bit here.
I think that's why I'm so excited about my compressor setup. It's exactly that. It's the same idea, which is basically getting your house in order, right? So you can work more efficiently. That's what
Right.
I'm most excited about. Is like I have 5 airports now that I can hook a tool into, and I don't have to like unreel a hose or any of this crap.
Yeah.
So it's a great time to get your house in order, because things are slower. You don't have the worry of FOMO. Because everybody's doing basically the same thing. You know, we got people in the comments here talking about getting healthy.
Getting healthy. I love that one.
Which I think's less TV.
Less TV.
And some people are playing more video games, so that's a good thing. Let's get on to talking with Taylor. I'm gonna ring him up here on our ghetto phone system.
Yeah, buddy.
And we are gonna talk.
Taylor Pearson from TaylorPearson.me. I wonder, I can't remember if he owns the .com.
You better.
One of our favorite writers.
Taylor, are you there? Hey, buddy, do you own TaylorPearson.com yet?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I don't. It's a construction company in England. So if you
Wow.
want to talk to them about that.
have you put in an offer yet?
No, judging by the website and what looks like the size of the company, I can't afford it, so I haven't bothered.
Bummer. Well, maybe it's time to change your name.
Yeah, also an option.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for calling in to the show. I know you're busy. I want to talk about a couple things today. You have a newsletter. It's called The Interesting Times. I've been subscribed to it for a while now. Your new project is called is it called The Mutiny?
Yeah, I do have a newsletter called Interesting Times. I'm happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me. This is fun. But yeah, I've been working on a new project, which for a few complicated regulatory reasons can't talk.
You can't talk about it. You don't know about this. You're asking a tough question.
Built on an investment strategy. What's up?
Dude,
I was just browsing a website called Mutiny Fund the other day. Taylor doesn't know nothing about it. All right.
Hey, you mentioned it in your newsletter. I feel like it's fair game to talk about it. But
that's right. Yeah, the law, I never know what the lawyers are going to say. But yeah, so I'm working on an investing project. It's, the URL is mutinyfund.com. It's built around kind of an anti-fragile investment philosophy. So as talked about on the podcast many times, I'm a big fan of Nassim Taleb and his work around black swans and anti-fragility. And so maybe for the last 10 years, I've kind of been thinking about that's an interesting idea. This, how do you have an investment asset, or how do you have assets that benefit from volatility? But what is it? How do you actually do that? There's nothing, there's nothing you can sort of log into your brokerage account, or there's not kind of any obvious ways to do that. And so for the last 2 years, I've been working with a partner and a couple of research firms to figure out kind of what that would actually look like, and how you can do that if you're a big institutional investor. If you have $100 million or $1 billion, there are strategies and instruments you can use for that. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a retail investor that maybe has $200,000 or $1 million or whatever to do this kind of thing, there's not a lot of options. So that's what I've been working on, and we've got some interesting stuff we've put together, and I'm looking forward to talking more about it, and hopefully we'll have some big announcements in the next few weeks.
Taylor, I want to talk about your newsletter, The Interesting Times, because you bring up this concept that I think is worth exploring here for a couple minutes. It's basically the concept is how a can opener works. So if you would explain that to me, or how a can opener does or doesn't work. And I think it's important right now, given what's going on in the news and watching all these markets and trying to understand how everything is falling into place. So give us your ideas on how a can opener works.
Yeah, so this is the exercise. If anyone's sitting at their computer and they have a piece of paper in front of them, you know, kind of you pull out the piece of paper and you can do one of two things. You can either draw a can opener, the pieces, how the pieces interact, what does it look like, or just write a description of kind of how all the pieces of the can openers go together. And so this was done in a study that got published in a 2002 paper, and the conclusion was basically people believe they understand, you know, sort of familiar manufactured objects like a can opener much better than they actually do. So the researchers asked them, you know, prior to making that drawing or writing the explanation, to rank on a scale of 1 to 7 their understanding, what they evaluated their own understanding of how a can opener works at. And most people put it as fairly high. And then after actually having to draw the can opener or write the explanation of the can opener, everyone's evaluation of their own understanding went down. And there was a follow-up study, I think in 2012 or 2013, that basically did the same thing in politics, where subjects were asked to, you know, explain how their proposed political programs would work, exactly how they would be implemented, and what the specific outcomes would be. And everyone's confidence dropped dramatically after they were forced to sort of articulate. So, you know, to your point about kind of what's going on right now, I think, you know, this is an incredibly complex, very fluid situation with just an absurdly large number of moving parts and huge variance and sort of possible outcomes. And so I think, you know, having, you know, listening, maybe on Twitter too much, but, you know, hearing people kind of opine about exactly what's going to happen or what things are going to look like 6 to 12 months now was just kind of like struck by the hubris, right? Like, you know, no one really knows. Like, it's just, there's just so much uncertainty here, and any sort of perceived understanding we have is primarily just that. It's you know, perceived understanding and not, you know, not someone that actually knows what's going on.
So if the idea is basically very few people, the metaphor is basically very few people understand how a can opener works, but they perceive that they know how it works. And I think the same thing you're saying could be true for these financial systems and these complex systems. And these complex systems. So why are we trying to predict what's going to happen? Is it because we're trying to self-soothe, you think, or is it because we're actually trying to make money and steps forward?
Yeah, I think it's both, right? Like, and there's studies I've seen around this. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but, you know, when people think, there's a great account I read. It's like a guy's journal after he like converts to communism, and it's just explaining like the clouds parted and like the ultimate truth was revealed, and, you know, the eternal struggle of the bourgeoisie and proletariat is the central, you know, human. And I think it is like a soothing. It's like, oh, like this, now I understand how the world works. Like, it all makes sense. You know, this whatever the new grand philosophy of the day kind of thing is. And then I think, yeah, I mean, also like it would be, were it possible to know, it would be useful, right? Like, yeah, everyone can make more intelligent decisions about their business if they knew what the course of the virus was going to be, how governments were going to react, you know, what the macroeconomic situation is going to look like in 6, 12, and 24 months. And so I think it's, you know, it's obviously like natural to want to understand it and would be useful to understand it. I think there's, you know, you can get a greater than zero level of understanding, but you see that, I mean, I think the thing I just reflect on for myself is just, you know, having some humility about the, you know, the possible limits of my understanding as a non-macroeconomist, non-medical doctor. You know, there's just so many complex parts of this whole thing, and they all interact, and, you know, no one has a real understanding of all of them.
So if it's the case, Taylor, and I think that you're probably right, that it's very hard for most people to grok kind of this entire system. What is your best advice for how we should move forward, especially as entrepreneurs in times like these?
Yeah, I actually wrote a post this week, kind of my best practices list, having talked to a bunch of small business owners, startups over the last kind of month in terms of what's everyone doing. Like, I think if you just start from the premise that like things are very uncertain, that's a pretty good starting point, because I think you at that point you're going to try to, how do I sort of give myself the most possible options. Like, a couple like concrete things, you know, I've done, and friends or clients or people I've worked with have done is, you know, do some scenario planning, like, you know, what if normally, the business makes 150,000 in revenue a month, like, what does it look like to keep the business alive at 75% of that, at 50% of that, at 30% of that? Like, what expenses need to get cut when? I've been talking to a lot of people that were running businesses through 2008, and I guess y'all can opine on this as you have more real world experience than I do. But one of the biggest things people have told me is kind of making the mistake they made was waiting too long to make decisions, just kind of hoping things would just like return back to normal and kind of sitting on the status quo, and then having to make much harder and much more severe decisions down the line, right? Like if you don't cut the expenses at all in month one and you just kind of run through the burn for 6 months, like now you just burn through your 6 months of cash in the bank, and now you got to lay everyone off and shut down the business or whatever it is. So I think having that scenario planning and just being very open to those possibilities and being able to react very quickly and make very quick decisions about what needs to happen, just because there's a sense in which time is kind of compressed right now, right? Like just the amount, I basically never watch the news. I like watch a press conference every day now because like something's happening, right? There's like some defining event that's happening almost every day, and so I think the kind of tempo is just very high right now.
Yeah, I don't know if it's any more helpful than what you said, but one idea here is basically panic before everybody else does. Panic and plan before everybody else does. So you can be relaxed in the time when everybody else is panicking, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you don't react too early, you're too late. Like it's just because of just how fast things are moving, it's hard to time it perfectly. So you have to be too early, otherwise you're going to be too late.
Taylor, I want to ask you one final thing, and then I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy, and you might not have the answer to this, but again, this is like us trying to make sense of how all these different systems come together. There's something really confusing going on, and maybe you can shed some light on it for me. Is like basically what I'm seeing is that the markets are rebounding, the stock markets are rebounding, and the Fed is injecting I don't know, what is it, like $2.5 trillion into the economy. And so at the same time, I don't think we've ever printed this much money, and yet the markets are going almost, it seems like, back to normal. Do you have any idea what's happening there?
Yeah, I guess obviously having said all the things I just said, I'll caveat this with, this is probably wrong, but this is my current understanding, and it's evolving very quickly. So yeah, I guess let me try to give, to understand, to the extent I can explain it. So I think part of what happened in March when we saw kind of that very fast and very rapid drawdown in call it the market or the S&P 500, if you want to use that as just a proxy for kind of public stock markets, was more of like an institutional liquidity event. And so part of what was happening is there are these big hedge funds that engage in a strategy called relative value. And the idea behind a relative value strategy is you want to take two very similar assets that are trading apart from each other, and you're going to sell the one that seems overvalued short. You're going to short that, and you're going to buy the one that's long. So kind of the classic example is back in like the 80s, the 30-year Treasury bond, U.S. Treasury bonds, traded a premium to the 29-year Treasury bonds, just because like people were used to going and buying the 30-year Treasury bonds when they got released. And so you would go short the 30-year Treasury bond, right, because it's overvalued because people just keep buying them because that's what they're used to doing. And you go long the 29-year, and over time the delta between the difference between them slowly compresses. So you make money on the short as the 30-year goes down, and you make money on the long as the 29-year goes up. And the idea there is it's hard to predict sort of what's going on in the macro economy, and so you want to be kind of like neutral. So in theory, if all Treasury bonds get hurt, because you're going to get hurt equally, right? So like if you're long one and short the other, it doesn't matter. You're balanced out there either way. And so those kinds of strategies have become increasingly popular for a number of reasons. But in order to do them, the spread between two similar assets is going to be very small. So let's say the spread between the 29 and 30-year Treasury was 0.5%. If you want to make, a hedge fund level return, you want to make 15% a year on that, you need to go levered up 30x to put that trade on. So now at 30x, I'm making, the 50 basis points, the 0.5%. That's great. Now I can make 15% a year. What happens when you have a ton of volatility in the market is, all those like kind of normal things that, look, these both should trade this way, is the volatility just causes these big dislocations, these big blowouts and spreads. So even though it's, quote unquote irrational, that spread goes from, 0.5% to 1%. So now you just lost a huge, like you basically just blew up the fund, right? Because you were so highly levered. And so you get margin called and you have to unwind that trade, right? So now you have to sell, let's say you're trading $1 million, you're level up to $30 million. You have to get out of that trade now. So you have to sell $30 million. And like, what does that do? It causes a bunch of selling pressure and it drives down the market. And then the next person that was levered 25x instead of 30x, now they just blew out their book because they had the same trade on as you did, kind of thing. And so I think a lot of from my understanding, talking to people that are smarter than me, is a lot of what we saw in March was basically just that liquidity unwind. It was these highly leveraged hedge funds doing these relative value trades, and the spreads just blew out. The spreads that were used to being very close became very big. And then what's happened is most of the kind of the weak hands, the people that were doing the sort of riskiest versions of that, blew out in sometime in March. Things have gone a little bit back to normal, because it doesn't. To your point, it's interesting. Like, I think the market was up 4.5% on news of 3.3 million jobless claims. So it's not, it doesn't seem like there's like fundamentals in terms of how people are thinking of it in terms of the real economy. So that's my understanding of kind of what happened in March. Why is it going back up, and why are people buying? I have no idea. Maybe they know something I don't know about where things are going. And I think, I guess the argument kind of for the other side is like, well, if what happened is this virus came and we had a bunch of demand that was deferred instead of canceled. So everyone's going to take a vacation in April. Is no longer going to take that vacation. But if they're going to take that vacation anyway, they're just going to take it in July. Then that demand, that like effect on the GDP didn't go away. It just got moved from June to July or April to July. And so if you have, most of the demand isn't actually canceled, it's just deferred until some point into the future. And you have massive stimulus, to your point about, trillions of dollars coming in from central banks around the world. Like, that's actually like super bullish for the stock market, right? Because like now we're going to have basically the same GDP numbers, the same growth rates, the same earnings of these companies. And there's like a ton of liquidity that's just flooding the system. So now there's even more money. It's even cheaper, and asset prices are going to go up. So I think that's kind of the other narrative that I hear. And is that true? How does that play out? I have no idea.
Crazy.
Well, it could mean. Could it mean? I'm asking you that cash is a weaker position.
But the U.S. dollar has strengthened. I was looking at like the U.S. to Australian dollar exchange rate, and it's up to like 15% in the last month or two or something. So yeah, the dollar in the short term at least is still seems to be behaving very much as kind of a safe haven asset, and people want dollars. I think the open question is if in that more recent scenario, if demand was just deferred, not canceled. And there's all this stimulus, and that's super bullish. At that point, maybe you do get an inflationary environment where now we've just like injected all this liquidity in the system when we actually didn't need to, because the demand was just being deferred, and it's hard to get that liquidity back out of the system, or the central banks seem to have been kind of unwilling to unwind or unable to unwind that liquidity.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call happy hour. I'm very happy. I'm very confused, but good to talk to you, Taylor. Thanks so much for taking part of your day to join us on the show.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Thank you, Taylor.
Take care.
Everybody, that's Taylor Pearson from TaylorPearson.me, not the enormous construction company in the UK, but a brilliant thinker, someone who's starting a fund that he didn't ask me to talk about this. I don't know what the legality is. Anyway, he's a smart guy. Check out mutinyfund.com. And yeah.
Just goes to show, I mean, my God, I mean, Taylor's just a mensch. He's a very smart guy trying to make sense of all this. A lot of us are less smart trying to make sense of it. It's hard. I mean, I love it that Taylor just says, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a certain amount of things that we just don't know. And so his idea of like operating as if you might lose half of your business, forecasting for that, I think is a very strong one.
Yeah, and it made me think. There was a wonderful Freakonomics podcast episode, and they used this yesterday. If you check out Freakonomics, they talked about the food supply in the U.S. And one of the metaphors they brought up, or the ideas, was, nobody in the U.S. knows how to make a pencil. Maybe a couple people do, or whatever. But this, what seems like such a simple object, has now been distributed across many people and complex systems and just-in-time inventory and all this kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, you think like a pencil is this like simplest thing, and nobody really knows how to do it. You challenge somebody to do it. And this is, again, back to this theme of TMBA called bike shedding, which is all of a sudden you like dump a global pandemic, and all of a sudden, all the armchair epidemiologists come out and know what's going to happen, or they all of a sudden understand data, complex data systems and whatever. And cool. Like, I understand why people want to talk, and that's fine with me. But as entrepreneurs, that's going to give you a sense of anxiety, potentially. I think the wonderful response to this that we can have as entrepreneurs, what is the promise of the pencil? The promise of the pencil is that you don't understand how a pencil works. You don't understand. So you definitely don't understand how the economy works. So stop trying to understand it. You don't have to understand the economy to win. Same thing we say, like, you don't have to have a business idea to be a business person. Business ideas are these big, complex things. All you have to do is engage in commerce. And so there's never been a better time to have a savings plan and to sit down for 8 hours and to simplify your financial life. There's never been a better time to learn a new skill that's profitable. And there's never been a better time to establish a consistent habit that builds value and compounds for you over time. So what Taylor did in the Interesting Times today was he made a very elegant argument and a legible argument for investing in yourself. And he said, look, you don't understand a pencil, you don't understand the market, but you just might understand what you're doing. You just might understand that asset that you built. You just might understand luxury cat furniture to the people you sell it to. And you only need to sell it to a couple thousand. And if you understand that asset compounds. And if you do it well, you're going to have extra cash someday. And then you can take small risks that are diversified in a bunch of things that you understand less. You might understand that apartment complex in Arkansas or Atlanta or in Tbilisi. You might understand that apartment complex less, but you know what? It's only 20% of my net worth. I'm going to go for it because I love apartments. I think it's interesting. I respect the person I'm working with. Whatever. I might live in it someday. That's a hedge. Now I'm going to take 20% and put it in the US economy, whatever. But I love what Taylor's argument was, is this fundamental idea of like, hey, there is something out there that you can understand, or you can get closer to. And maybe that's the first investment. And that's the TMBA message.
It's Friday. We should all be investing in ourselves this weekend, whether it means a nice cold one, your shop, your bike, your van, your business. That's what I'm off to. Anything else?
It's the weekend. This investing in yourself idea is something that's really inspired me since day one and still continues to keep me motivated. So, it's one of the highlights. One of the happy hours for me is I got so lucky to be locked down with you, boss man. And I just love that you're willing to join me here at the Dan Andrews Show featuring Ian Schoen. And I mean, that's been a big thing for me, and I really appreciate that.
Well, everybody, thanks for being on the Ian and Dan Show. Hope you have a good weekend, and signing off.
All right.